I mean, I've already talked about it from a receiving standpoint. They are up there with the Cowboys in terms of rival. Obviously, the Cowboys last week, we said Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and then CeeDee Lamb. They caused some problems for us. Even with Garrett Gilbert at quarterback, they caused some problems. And even watching the tape again, Garrett was missing on a ton of throws, and he still had a lot of productivity, but he missed on a ton of just routine timing passes, just the ball placement. And it's at the NFL level, we don't really talk about it as much because these are the best of the best terms of passes, but just a lot of his throws where he was having guys open, deep outs and comebacks, just ball placement being more inside or behind a receiver versus chest or leading them to, to just be safe to catch the ball and get out of bounds or not take a hit. Garrett doesn't possess that. Whereas Joe Burrow, you watch him on tape, Joe throwing some dimes. I mean, as it stands right now from a pure passer standpoint, he's the second best pure passer in the AFC North, man, behind Ben, obviously. Like, he is like that. I feel more concerned for him long-term being a threat to us than I do Lamar Jackson or Baker. I just don't think those guys. With Lamar, we know he's a great athlete. We know he's a great playmaker. But in terms of just pure quarterback, we've seen some of the flaws he has from a passing standpoint. And obviously with our defense the way it is, we've been able to really get after him and create some turnovers. Joe Burrow is different, though, in terms of he is like Ben in terms of throwing the ball. He can put it anywhere you need, has the velocity, has the toughness. Now, his toughness is different than Ben. Ben is more, you can get to Ben, but you can't bring Ben down. Burrow definitely has shown some elusiveness. That Titans game, man, they were coming after him, and he was making guys miss, finding ways to be Houdini. That's the part that makes me a little nervous, because we saw even with Garrett Gilbert last week how when he extended some plays, it presented some challenges for us. Joe is like that, but obviously a way better player than Garrett Gilbert, both as a runner and as a passer. So he is the biggest concern. Now, we know with these receivers, AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins, they have all produced. We know AJ Green. We know exactly who he is. Tyler Boyd, we know exactly who he is. And T. Higgins is emerging. I mean, he's been looking good in his opportunities. They have two big issues right now. Number one is the running game. With Joe Mixon being out, Giovanni Bernard, I mean, he's a good player, but he's more of the complimentary variety. We think of Giovanni Bernard similar to how we would view Jalen Samuels and Anthony McFarland. They're more of your, all right, passing down guys. You want to get them the ball in space. You don't really want to line them up and have them running in between the tackles. That's really not their game at this particular point. No Joe Mixon though. That's the big issue for them. And then their
is he officially out?
They haven't ruled him out because he's coming off a bye week. So that's why they're still kind of up in the air.
Either way, you're right. The Bernard and their running game hasn't done anything. Mm-hmm. But even with Mixon, he was averaging 3.6 yards a carry. He only had one good game up to this point. But yeah, their running game really hasn't been doing anything. But
the thing is, and this is why I always tell you, I'm never worried about yards per carry, because we've pointed out how this guy who's not even as impactful can have a great yards per carry. But if you're talking about the game, you're not even thinking about that guy. Whereas with Joe Mixon, that man could be averaging 1 yard per carry. You still are going to understand the importance and the significance of stopping him. So just the thought of him being out there is different. It makes you have...
Bell with the Jets last year.
Absolutely. Like, we knew his stats were down. We could go and talk ad nauseum of, well, technically, this guy had a better yards per carry. This guy had better, total yards per game. But we all said that, hey, man, if we got to prepare for the two, I'm more worried about Le'Veon than I am with this guy. That's the Joe Mixon element of it, man. So regardless of what his numbers were, if he's out there, he does present challenges. He does present problems. But that's the first part of it. The second part is the offensive line. They still, like I said, they if I'm the Bengals, man, next year I'm solely drafting offensive linemen in the first 2 to 3 rounds, or I'm paying guys in free agency, because you on offense, your setup is nice, but you have to protect. Right now, another reason why they're predominantly in the gun is they can't protect and hold up enough for Joe to be under center, take a 5-step drop, survey the field without being under duress. At least with him being in the gun right now, he's been able to get the ball out a lot faster, so they don't have to protect as much. Mm-hmm. But when they're asked to protect, it is not good, man. So that's another reason why you see them a lot in the gun and why they haven't been able to run. Just gun runs aren't as effective as, when you're lining up under center and just blowing guys off the ball. That's just... One, you're starting, 4 or 5 yards back, and it's more of you're trying to catch him off guard with some of the draws and some of the elongated runs. We see it all the time here in Pittsburgh. We talk about the 4th and 1 that ended up getting stopped. It was a more elongated lateral sideline to sideline type run, which they still should have got the first down on, by the way. But that's the different styles of it compared to when you're under center, you're just downhill. You can be a lot more successful, but they don't have the personnel for that right now. So that's another reason why when we talk about teams that are built for the Steelers that I think could give us challenges and teams that I don't, that's why I don't think they could give us challenges, because I feel like our D-line should overwhelm them. Now, we said that last week as well.
Right.
And we both agreed that we didn't feel that the D-line really played up to their full potential for 4 quarters. We felt that they showed spurts. They showed, glimpses of dominance, but it was never hostile. It was never dominant. It was never, man, they can't move the ball on us.
And that's what opened up the receivers.
Absolutely. So for me, I look at the exact same way, but I'm challenging these guys even more this week because I'm like, dude,
just don't have a repeat performance.
You can't have a repeat performance, man. I mean, Joe Burrow at quarterback compared to Garrett Gilbert.
Would you say Cowboys line, Bengals line, how similar there? You saying Bengals worse?
No, they're pretty similar. I think Cowboys is always going to have that allure of the Cowboys because we think of them as healthy. Remember, they only had one of their original starters. This group right here is different. They have some of their guys, and obviously, what's his name? Jonah Williams, right? He was I think it was a year ago. He was the first round pick. Excuse me. He's questionable right now, right? But if he's their best offensive lineman, he's not Zach Martin from a week ago. So depending on how you view it, I think obviously Zach Martin you get more star power there, but I think across the board, maybe I would go Bengals personnel on their front compared to the line that the Cowboys threw out there last week. But either way, when you're talking about Tuitt, Cam, Bud, and TJ, should it be an offensive line in the NFL that can block us? I personally don't feel it should be. And right now, we didn't see that consistently last week. So don't have that repeat this week. You have to say, all right, man, we have to dominate this matchup, because if Joe Burrow has time with those receivers, they're gonna present some challenges, man. That could be a real issue,
you saw with Wentz and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they can get some time on our defense, these receivers can get open. You can get a nice 15, 20-yard game.
This group of receivers is way better than the Texans and way better than the Eagles. So that to me is why it's even more important that the D-line dominates from start to finish and creates that hostility. Now, I don't think you're going to get a scenario where we used to joke with Joe Flacco, right? We would say, man, you get to a point where you hit him enough, he'll turn it down. I don't see that in Joe Burrow's game. Joe, that's the one thing I do like about him is how tough he is. I've seen this dude take some shots. I even had a chance to listen to the mic'd up of him, and literally he's laughing. He's just like, bro, that's good. It's good. I got something for you.
Andrew Luck.
Yeah, but no, at least with Luck was going to compliment you, right? This dude is on some oh, I bet we good. He's letting you know he's ready to go, man. So for me, I love that, especially with young guys, because you just never know. But I think that's going to be good for the AFC North as a whole, man. I think just as we get that new wave of quarterbacks, right, that are coming in, you want to make sure you got guys that's going to keep the league as a whole, the division as a whole, viewed as a top-notch division, not oh, man, they suck in that division. We don't want that vibe.
I guess makes for more entertaining games, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you hit everything on the head. That's kind of what I was going to say. What you brought up, though, is interesting. Is there's a combination of Burrow whenever he drops back to pass, of it's coming out quick,
yeah,
or he's making things happen, and
dude,
he might not get it out for 7 or 8 seconds.
It is nuts,
and gets it downfield.
Versus the Titans, it showed up so much where you would think okay. Obviously, with Ben, we know it's a little bit different, right? He'll make a guy miss, and he doesn't mind holding it a little bit longer, but that's Ben. With Joe, man, I seen Joe make one guy miss, make a second guy miss, hold the ball for a second, make a third guy miss, and then throw it downfield. I'm like, this is crazy.
There was one play where he didn't even throw it down. I think it was on a third. It was like a 3rd and 10. Do you remember this? He was in the backfield for 10 seconds going back and forth everywhere. He ended up getting a 4 or 5 yard gain on the ground. I think they ended up punting, but he's been impressive, man. I think it goes back to what we've talked about in the past with Lamar, Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson. These dudes can kind of do it themselves, figure out a way, despite offensive line in Carson Wentz scenario, and even Deshaun Watson with their receivers not being the most elite in the league.
Yes, indeed.
In this case, like we said, Bengals, they got some top receivers here. So, and that's been our weakness, just getting gashed in the backfield, or not the backfield, I guess the secondary.
End, yeah. When you think about like that's the thing too, and that's why we always say statistics. You have to be careful with them because on paper, statistically, our defense is still one of the best in the league in terms of run, pass yards, total points, all that. They check the boxes. But I think we will all agree that our defense has given up an alarming amount of explosive plays, both in the pass game and in the run game, like stuff that you just typically wouldn't expect coming into this season. If this was 2 years ago, I think it's different. But the expectation that was set after last year, we weren't anticipating this at all.
Yeah, this defense is definitely an upgrade from outside of last year, the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. And to me, I just feel like they haven't lived up to that expectation yet this season in terms of where we think of just dominant performances.
Browns game, that was it.
Yeah. And even that, I still felt that like a lot of that was because of the Browns conceding in the early part of the third quarter. Most teams, man, they're going to at least give you to the fourth quarter. We even saw Brady on, like I said earlier this week, they down 31-0 in the second. He's still playing in the fourth quarter. They pulled Baker, I think, a series in the third quarter. So it was clear that they weren't even trying to go that route with it. And I think that kind of played into it. But I wondered to myself, like, what happened if they really would have tried to challenge us and push us in that second half? Because we've seen, scenarios where teams have had
We thought the Eagles game was over.
Yeah.
I think it was the Texans, too. I thought that one was over, too.
Texans, Eagles, and Titans. All three of those we thought were done, man.
Broncos, with
as soon as
going out.
Especially with Locke went out, we saw, it's done. And then we saw Driscoll in the second half in particular come back and really start to light us up. Noah Fant, man, we was making plays. So to me, I don't think, like I said, none of us expected our secondary to give up the plays that they've given up. Now, they've made splash as well.
Very timely plays. Like it's one of those things you can't complain too much about because at the same time, we get in the pick in the red zone, holding teams to field goals whenever they are having good drives. Like that counts for something.
Yeah, well, and that's why I feel like they still have been, a B plus in that vicinity, B plus range, but it's a difference when you think of what an elite defense would look like. We're not consistently seeing that from them, and it's masked by the turnovers. The turnovers give you that feeling of, it's all right. It's kind of like when we talk about the offense. Well, in the second half, man, we were able to, spread it out, move, get some points out. Offense is all right. And it's like when you really look at it, you're like, that's not all right. I mean, we're really dominant right now, or really reliant on creating turnovers, or bend but don't break. Get down to the red zone and just hope you can, create a stop, force a field goal. That's not a good recipe. We talk about that versus Garrett Gilbert. You think Patrick Mahomes settling for field goals? This segment is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbooking app. But also, right, because we know sportsbooking isn't allowed everywhere. We got that, okay. But fantasy football, right? Who doesn't love a little fantasy football? And who doesn't love fantasy football with the opportunity to win up to $1 million worth of prizes every week? Who doesn't love that? With DraftKings Fantasy Football app, you are able to do that. You can participate in the fun, man. You can spice up your Sundays, all right? So, download the app, DraftKings Fantasy Football. Make sure you use the promo code Moats so you can receive up to $1,000 in deposit bonuses. And let's have a little fun, man. Let's get an opportunity to get some paper.